Have you ever had that feeling that you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but somehow you're still not really getting anywhere? You're working hard, you're trying to be responsible, you're making sensible decisions, and yet progress feels strangely slow. It's almost like you're on a treadmill, you're putting in the effort, you're moving, but the scenery around you doesn't seem to change very much. At some point in adulthood, a lot of people begin noticing this. And it's nothing dramatic, it's more like a quiet question that starts forming somewhere in the background. Why does this feel harder than it's supposed to be? Because most of us grew up with a certain story about how the world works. You work hard, you follow the rules, you be responsible, and over time things will move forward. If you build a career, if you build stability, you'll slowly get ahead. That story is everywhere. Schools reinforce it, parents repeat it. Older generations often believe it, because for many of them, it was closer to being true. And for a long time, we believe it as well. Because believing it makes it feel predictable. Effort leads to progress, rules lead to fairness. The world makes sense, right? But then slowly something begins to feel off. You start to notice little things, people working incredibly hard and still struggling, and other people moving forward quickly, sometimes without that same level of effort. You see institutions talking about fairness but behaving very differently when things actually matter. Maybe you notice it in the workplace, maybe in the housing market, maybe when you start paying attention to finance or the legal system or politics or the way large organizations actually make decisions. Different areas, but a similar pattern. The rules don't always produce the outcomes you were told they would. At first, most people assume the problem must be them. Maybe I'm missing something, maybe I chose the wrong path. Maybe everyone else understands how the system works better than I do. And to be fair, that explanation is comforting. Because if the problem is you, at least it's something you can fix. But over time, the pattern keeps appearing again and again. You see talented people stuck. You see mediocre people advancing. You see institutions protecting themselves instead of the people they claim to serve. And eventually, and almost reluctantly, a different thought starts forming. Not necessarily loudly, just quietly in the background somewhere. What if the problem isn't that I'm doing it wrong? What if the system itself works differently than what we were told? And if you follow that thought far enough, you eventually reach a realization that changes the way you see almost everything. What if the system isn't broken? What if it's actually working exactly the way it was designed to work? And that realization can feel uncomfortable at first, because most of us grew up believing systems are neutral, that if you follow the rules long enough, eventually the system rewards you. But when you start looking closely, a lot of systems were never designed primarily to reward individual effort. They were designed to maintain stability. Large institutions protect themselves. Workplaces protect hierarchy. Financial systems protect capital. Legal systems protect procedure. And once you start seeing that pattern, something interesting happens. You stop taking every obstacle personally. Not because the system is malicious, but because it's operating according to the priorities that were never really about any individual person. And for some of us, that realization creates anger. For others of us, something much more useful happens. Clarity. You start seeing the structure more clearly, where effort actually matters, where it doesn't. Where the rules are rigid and where they quietly bend. And once you see the structure clearly, you can stop trying to force your entire life through it. Instead, You begin building things alongside it. Skills, judgment, relationship, options. You still move within systems when it makes sense, but you stop expecting them to carry your whole future. Because the deeper realization isn't just that the system wasn't designed for you. The deeper realization is that your life was never meant to rely entirely on systems in the first place. Systems organize large groups of people. They create structure, but they were never designed to understand your individual life. Sure, they can offer opportunities, but they can't replace your ability to think clearly about the world you're living in. And once that becomes clear, the question changes. Instead of asking, why am I struggling inside this system, you begin asking something much more interesting. What kind of life am I building, whether the system helps me or not? And strangely, that shift often brings a sense of calm, because the center of gravity moves away from institutions, away from structures, and back to something much more reliable. Your ability to observe the world clearly and decide exactly how you want to move through it.